Dr. Rima, we are back on the air.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Dr. Rima Truth Reports. My co-host Ralph Fusatola JD is with me, and our extraordinary guest Ingrid P. Dickenson, who is sharing absolutely crucial and critical information with us about electromagnetic smog and the very, very potent reasons that it is not only bad for you, it is quite literally killing you and changing the lives of your children, born and unborn. Before we go back to hear about the options that are available and exist for us to polluting ourselves into the grave with electromagnetic pollution and how to treat the impact of electromagnetic pollution, I would like to talk to you about the very opposite of pollution. I'd like to talk to you about clean, unadulterated, certified organic, and beyond healthy coffee. The Natural Solutions Foundation has a teaching farm in the highlands of Panama where we grow what I promise you is the best coffee you have ever tasted in your life. It's called Valley of the Moon Coffee, and it is available for you for free. All you have to do is make a donation of $25 and pay the shipping and handling, and we will send you a half-pound bag as our way of saying thank you. And that half-pound bag can be either ground or can be whole bean. Now, why are we growing coffee? Because we want to teach farmers how to grow without agrochemicals. And by the way, Sri Lanka has become the first country in the world to ban Roundup, glyphosate. Why? Because it causes so many cases of chronic kidney disease, and they cannot afford to put everybody in the country on dialysis. So it's cheaper to face the wrath of Monsanto than to have glyphosate in their food and in their environment, killing so many people. Glyphosate has been found in every blood sample tested by the Environmental Working Group, EWG, and it's been found in every food they tested. They didn't test our coffee. Our coffee consistently tests pesticide, fungicide, and other agrochemical free, and it is certified organic. When you make a cup of coffee that has these things in it, the poisons go into the hot water that you're drinking that is coffee flavored. That's how you make coffee. You make a hot water extract of coffee. And if there are poisons in it, you're getting poisoned. These are not good for you. These are very, very, very bad for you. And if you go online and do a search for glyphosate hazards or glyphosate dangers or glyphosate toxicity, you will see just how bad it is. Well, we have none of that in our coffee. So our coffee is clean. It is also helping to protect the earth and workers as well as the consumer, you. That's www.valleyofthemooncoffee.com. Valleyofthemooncoffee.com. You'll be supporting the Natural Solutions Foundation when you make a donation because, after all, that's Health Freedom's own coffee. And if you use coffee for detox purposes, this is perfect because it is clean and it is unadulterated. Now, there's something else I want to tell you about, another part of nature's bounty. It's called hemp oil. There are people who are treating seizures, intractable seizures, who are treating cancer, who are treating Alzheimer's, who are treating autism, who are treating MS, who are treating muscle spasms, who are treating Crohn's disease, who are treating vast numbers of disorders and diseases by choosing high potency hemp oil. And in the United States, it is totally legal. So if you go to tinyurl.com CBD hemp oil. CBD hemp oil. It's tinyurl.com/CBD hemp oil. You'll find products that have no THC, no discernible or no meaningful levels of THC, which is the get you high part, and have high levels of CBD, which is the get you well part. And if you choose to use hemp oil, you will be making what I believe is both a prudent and a meaningful choice for your health. That's tinyurl.com/CBD hemp oil. There's a whole science of hemp oil that the FDA, that's the Fraud and Death Administration, chooses to act as if is non-existent. There's a huge amount of study that's been done, and I suggest strongly that you investigate this if you or loved ones are looking for prevention or are looking for therapies for various treatments, for various ailments. This is, as I have been calling it, the holy grail of natural medicine. Why wouldn't you look into it? tinyurl.com/CBD hemp oil. And I will tell you that since we opened our CBD hemp oil shop on our e-commerce site, the hacking of all of our sites and the site itself, the hacking has been unbelievably fierce. Clearly, this is legal, but the drug cartel would much rather you not know about this. A word to the wise. So, now, Ralph, do you have anything to add about those topics?
Number one, the coffee is really delicious.
Oh,
And
yeah.
number two, I'm very excited about the CBD hemp oil situation. I believe that we have a real opportunity, as long as we're careful and make it clear that we're presenting the product to the world as as a nutritional product, that a physician like Dr. Rima can recommend it as a medical food under the Orphan Drug Act. But the rest of us have to really make it really clear that we understand that this is not being offered as a treatment of disease. It's not being offered in competition to FDA approved and state medical board approved standard medication and standard medicine. It's being offered
No, we would never do that. Never.
Exactly. So, as long as we all understand that the words we use matter and we want to express our intent so clearly that the people at NSA who are taking copious notes, isn't it nice, by the way, that they have these people there taking copious notes and making reports, we hope, to those in power. And again, we remind the note takers, you may think that you're going to be protected because you're indispensable to the regime. But let me remind you, when Stalin ordered the massacre of 10,000 Polish officers and intellectuals in the Tanya Forest in World War II, they had a special KGB unit carry out these murders over a 4-day period, by the way, shooting each individual in the head. The first thing he had when it was over, the first thing he had done was he called the special detachment back to Moscow, and he had them shot. So I would suggest that you pay attention, folks.
Because you're turncoats, they don't trust you, and they will eliminate you as soon as they think they've solidified their power totally. So take notes, don't vaccinate your kids, and think about another line of work altogether.
Amen.
So let us go back to our amazingly fruitful and informative discussion with Ingrid P. Dickenson of London. We're speaking today on a pre-recorded program because our radio broadcast time Thursday from 10 p.m. Eastern to midnight would be very inconvenient for somebody who has to get up early the next day to treat patients who lives in London, and that is the case with Ingrid Dickenson. First, would you give your website for our listeners, although those who are watching the archives can see it on our video, which is posted on our YouTube channel. But would you give your website, Ingrid?
It's www.earthbreathing.co.uk. Earth and breathing in one word. Earthbreathing.co.uk. And I mean, you can get to this from Earth breathing to the website www.bemri.org, which is BEMRI, Bioelectromagnetic Research Initiative.org.
That is so useful. Thank you. Tell us about the alternatives. Over the break, we were talking about the fact that there are alternatives to this deadly electronic soup that we're living in because of Wi-Fi and its many, many variations.
Well, I very much hope, because what you can't do is you can't say now to people you have to give up. Also, that would be favorable. You have to give up all your mobile phones and all your gadgets. It's that I don't think you will achieve that, but by actually choosing, and obviously I'm living without it, and I don't feel in any way deprived by not having a mobile phone, but some people might do that. So by actually choosing a medium that is not microwaves but visible light communication using LEDs is something that has been developed for quite some time. And originally, I believe it came from Japan. I've known about this for many years, and I was always surprised that it was not mentioned anywhere. Um, Benry is the only website that collates all the information about existing visible light communication developments, like, for example, what is called Li-Fi by Dr. Harald Haas. And I believe that has actually, Boris Johnson, the mayor of London, has actually introduced it in one of the academies. So it's kind of starting. It's not really out of the market, but in the States, it is. When you look at additional information on the VLC page of BEMRI, you can see a long list of developments of visible light communication. Now, from what I know, is that this is quite far. It can have quite fast transmission, faster transmission than we have now with microwave transmission. It obviously will have to overcome some hurdles, but unless it is going to get some proper PR, I think we will still kind of, this is a new development that isn't really that new. But I don't know whether it has been dragging on, why it's not, because I've known for quite some time. But people ought to have a look. Why is the industry not taking this up as a main focus of this is a new technology. This is a new era of mobile communication. And this is what, okay, a lot of people will say, oh my God, LEDs can be dangerous as well to the eye, and we even had people from our own anti-mobile phone campaigners saying, oh no, this could be just as dangerous as well. We have evolved through light. We have not evolved through pulsed microwaves. We have evolved through light, and thereby, if, for example, a particular light source, a particular LEDs have also come a long, long way. If a particular light force has got, for example, too much blue in it, too much of the blue frequency, that, with proper research, if that industry could work with good biologists who really understand how light works, how light affects the biological rhythms, then they could come up with a system that could actually, in the end, enhance health rather than destroy it. I've said this for a long time, and you can see a lot of PowerPoint presentations on my website. And especially there is a very good presentation by Professor Mosen Kavara in there about, for example, you can start with indoor lighting. There is Pennsylvania State University and Boston University. There are quite a lot of good links on memory that people should look at, and people should demand that they get that technology is being advanced and gets more funding, and because I can see that as the future. Light is the future.
Well, that only means that's a future if the globalists don't want to kill us, and that's quite another issue.
You see what you also have to look at, and this is my big question mark. It's very difficult to intercept light transmission. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So the security is high.
Yeah.
The security of microwave transmission is very, very low. How fascinating. That is a most interesting point. I wonder if we could move the discussion to your clinical expertise, Ingrid. You treat people. They come to you and they are ill in various ways. Talk to us about what would happen if I were fortunate enough to be in London and find you and say, I have this or that. What do people come to you for? What do you do? And what happens?
Well, I've got all kinds of people. In the moment, I'm treating somebody who had a stroke, who was told that she'll never recover. She is recovering. I also had somebody who had a non-union fracture. A man in his 60s, quite a while ago, a man in his 60s who had a plate fitted to his in his arm, and because he broke his arm, and it wouldn't catch, it wouldn't unite. So the bone it was non-union fracture, in other words. So they were saying to him that they were quite worried that they might have to operate again, take the plate out, and basically scrape of both sides of the bone in order to activate again the healing potential, in the hope that it would knit together. And he asked, I can remember him asking me, do you think you can do something? The good thing was here that I could actually provide proper proof. I said, okay, when have you got your next x-ray in the hospital, which was around the corner from me? And he said, well, in about 3 months. I said, well, all we can do is you come to me once a week, and I teach you for 3 months, and then, ask your doctor, if there's any movement going on, and if something has developed, if it looks like it's knitting together, then we can carry on. And this was the case. The doctors were very surprised that actually it looked that there was, something was happening. And so I said, okay, we carry on, and we did carry on for another 6 months, and then the bone healed completely together. The interesting thing was that he went back to hospital, and said, look, you told me there was absolutely, the break was so difficult and so complicated, there was absolutely no way that it would grow by its own. And now it has. Now I tell you what I did, blah, 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 I had this particular treatment. Well, what do you think they said to him? Oh, that was just coincidence. Now I treat, but I want to mention something else as well. I treat with, as I said, the machines have 40 biocompatibility. That's very important. Biocompatible frequencies set up in the machine that actually feeds through crystal, and it's not crystal therapy. So it's just actually feeds through quartz. And when you feed these signals through quartz, they actually emit a sound that can be picked up by a sound level meter, but not heard by the ear. Okay, the person then holds this glass tube with crystal connected to the machine. And with with an analog sound level meter, I go over the whole body. As the body is the blueprint of everybody's got a blueprint, as I already explained, an electromagnetic field. Now, as I already said before, if the body is strong and healthy, the field should be even all over. So in other words, what I actually measure on my sound level meter, I obviously tune the person in to the 0 point, to a point in the middle of the meter, and it depends on the how much I have to turn the machine up. In other words, the amplitude of the signal will actually already tell me how strong the field is. If I have to turn the amplitude up high, that means the field, in order to get a resonance or a signal on my meter, on my sound level meter, if I have to turn it up high, that means that the field is weak. So I already have, I've got 40 frequencies, but I've got the setting is from 0 to 10. So in other words, to make it very simple, for example, my granddaughter scans in on 1.
Uh-huh.
Most people, if they're quite okay, they scan in on 5, right? But most people now scan on. It's got worse. Don't forget, I've been doing this 30 years. It's got worse with the years. Most people are nearer to 10 now, so to maximum. And in fact, I can remember once I scanned somebody and I didn't know what to do because I couldn't get them in. I couldn't get any signal out of after they had, any echo out of the body, and because the signal was very weak. And I asked them what they were doing, what the profession, and they were a pilot.
Ah.
So I wasn't surprised because that was a heavily impacted field with all kinds of frequencies. So the field has got quite weak. So of course, and then I go over the body with the meter, and where I have pockets with kind of a louder sound or a more quiet sound, I can see where the field is stronger and where it's weaker. And then I treat the field simply by actually placing the tube with, that they're emitting the signal over that area. And then what happens then, it works via harmonic resonance. In other words, you actually introduce this particular energy field that is, because it's got, I know what kind of frequency to use, either stimulating, tranquilizing, or balancing.
How do you know?
And each energy center has got a different setting. Do you see what I mean? So it's a very individual treatment, and I need to see the person in person. I scan them every time, I treat every time, and then the next time they come, I scan them again. And then you can see quite clearly how they respond. Everybody responds quite differently, but some people respond incredibly quickly. And then they see it's a very gentle process, and it doesn't actually carry with it what you have, for example, in homeopathy, where you have this healing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You don't kind of have you check the effect people have usually is when, especially if they are very ill, they are feeling very, very over relaxed and tired afterwards. And I've had people, for example, with MS who actually literally slept 24 hours afterwards.
Yes, that makes great sense to me.
So that is the healing process. But what I have found, and this is purely by coincidence, when I put my earth breathing program together, which is a very simple moving meditation technique, which I have designed to actually create harmonic resonance with Schumann resonance. In other words, to go into, to put your brainwave rhythm get your brainwave rhythm into an alpha theta state. But it's a moving meditation, and it's more of a kind of ritual rather than sitting down and doing nothing and closing your eyes. It's very active, and it's very connected to breathing, rhythm, movement, and imagery. And the most important thing about earth breathing is my total connection to Mother Earth. So it is it's a spiritual, what do you call it, technique, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But the interesting thing, which was, and that's something that I never thought would happen, was that because I'm from this, I've been a practitioner in energy medicine for so long, and I have scanned people before and after. I don't like to introduce something to somebody without having any without being able to provide any proof. So I thought once, okay, because I did it myself for a long time before I treated other or introduced it to other people, introduced it as earth breathing. And because I discussed all this also with Dr. Wolfgang Ludwig about the Schumann resonance and earth breathing, and he basically, I was very proud when he actually at that time, because I really admired this man, and he said, yes, you hit the nail on the head, that can happen. Self-healing can happen when you do this. So I then thought, okay, if that's the case, I scan people after I've introduced them to the system. And I couldn't believe it. Because when I treat people, I can't, this with electrical therapy, yeah, with my machines, I will only see when they come the next time how the treatment affected their electromagnetic field. Now with earth breathing, it's very different. If I scan people, when they come to me, they learn it, and I mean, it's kind of an initiation process. They learn it, and it can take, and I teach it to them for 7 or 8 hours. It's not, the technique itself is very simple, but actually because it's an experiential technique it's a spiritual system, so I need that time to be with them, to teach them that. And then after the day they've been with me, I scan them again, and everybody is amazed because the system completely balances itself faster than when I use machines after the earth breathing technique.
Amazing.
So that's my way. You see, I'm having a big problem here because I tell you, because I've had big articles also, in the States, and people obviously come across my website, and all these people say to me, "How can I learn it? Can I learn it remotely?" And only when you come to me, then you realize how difficult it is. It's not something you can learn via Skype. It's because it's a very spiritual process. But one thing, can I mention one very important book that, I mean, I've done earth breathing for so long, but the one book that everybody can get and should get is the book called Not in His Image by John Lash. Is it John Lash Lamb? Yeah, let me see it. It is an amazing book, and it actually it gives you an insight into John Lamb Lash, Not in His Image. He explains the Gnostic vision and sacred ecology and the future of belief on it. It's all to do with our connection to the earth. There is so much more to our connection to the earth than just the simple, explanation about Schumann resonance and transverse geomagnetic fields. This is quite a deep book that gives you more understanding about how important it is that we connect to the earth.
What about people who say, yeah, I've just got a physical problem. Can you help me?
All right, I just if they say I just got a physical problem, I just treat them as electrical therapy.
And how do you compare the results that you see?
Well, I mean, they will very soon see. I compare because I scan them again the next time, and then the next time, if their readings are balanced, and if they come a couple of times, for example, I've got a very good example of a lady. I mean, of course, that was 20 years ago, because the lady was nearly 90. I think she was 88 or 89. And a friend of hers asked me to go to her because she's very ill. And basically, when I went to, because I actually went to see her, she was a little Scottish woman, a lovely woman. But she was, when I entered her flat, I felt like, oh my God, she's on her deathbed. The nurse was there. She couldn't hold her bowels. She couldn't even lay down, and I mean, it was awful. But this was a woman which most of her life was in quite good health, quite a strong woman. But she had a bad flu and then fell on the bus or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was, but she was extremely ill. So I thought really and truly, okay, I'm going to try my treatment, but I didn't think there was going to be much hope, because she really looked like she was going to die. And after the third time, I knocked on her door, and suddenly I could see this, she had a glass door, and I could see this little woman rushing towards the door, and I thought she had somebody there, and it was her. And I couldn't believe it, because she said to me, look, all I want to do is her nephew lived in New Zealand, and he invited her for his wedding. And she desperately wanted to go to New Zealand and see her nephew. She wanted to do that last trip. And of course, she had not, her doctor said, no way can you fly. It's impossible. This is, because she couldn't hold her bowels, and she was very, very ill. Anyway, after 6 weeks, I said to her, look, I'll get you there. I still have her letter. Obviously, by now, she's most probably died, because that was 20 years ago and she was very old then. But she actually wrote to me from New Zealand. She said, I danced off that plane. I didn't even have jet lag.
How lovely.
And she had a wonderful time in New Zealand. And this is, I actually, sometimes it surprises me what frequencies can do. It really did surprise me. And she did send me, I still have that letter from, how well she was afterwards. Your frequencies are amazing, and some people might not react the same way. It might need much longer. Especially, I think this woman, although she was old and pretty frail, she was quite well for most of her life. And some people, if they have got a lingering disease and bad diet, and burn the candle at both ends, and have worn down their life force, so to speak, they might take longer, and it might. But I never say to anybody, if I do that, I guarantee you, because you can't. But I've had very, very good results, and I don't advertise. I just, because most of my work is now research, and but so I don't advertise. I don't necessarily make myself known to everybody. But people who come to me will always come back and will tell others. Because
do you practice under any kind of a license there, or are you?
Oh yes, I'm a practitioner of energy medicine connected to the Institute of Complementary Medicine. I'm also an advisor to them on electromagnetic pollution.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm licensed, definitely.
And what sort of um, official response have you had from any government agencies or other people who could interfere with what you're doing?
Well, no, I don't. No, there isn't an interference. No, I haven't had interference with that because it's the institute is energy medicine. I mean, no, actually I haven't. Tell you the truth, but I'm not applying to go through the national health or anything. No, I've never had interference with that. It's not it's not kind of I'm not making claims, and I'm not some kind of faith healer or anything like that. It's kind of very it's very scientific, really. And I thought to myself, my I'm now 65. When I was a tiny girl, I can remember seeing in my grandmother's bedroom this machine. Now, she must have used it now 70 years ago in Germany. It is a milliampere machine. I still have that machine. And it actually uses very tiny. This is something that I'm using only for myself, not on patients. It is amazing. My grandmother was told when she was in her 50s that she should because she had such bad arthritis in her knees that they would have to stiffen her knee. That was long before knee replacements. And she said at that time, no, 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 I'll find something. Now, this machine must be, that must have been invented in the 1940s, 50s or something. It's basically a very, very, very small current, and in Germany it's called Heilstrom, which is healing electricity. Right? Now I know that they're using it now in German hospitals, but now you can't get the home machine anymore. But as I say, I'm not using it for anybody else. I'm just using it for myself because I think it's just amazing. If I've got problems with my knee or whatever. And I'm surprised that this kind of thing isn't more in
I'm not at all surprised. Let me tell you why. You probably know this well, Ingrid, but let's share this with our listeners. And Ralph, I know you know this because we've discussed this several times. Around the beginning of the 20th century, there was a huge upsurge and exploratory development of the use of electricity for health.
Right.
The use of frequency devices for anesthesia, for instance, 2,000 cycles per second transmitted to the patient made complete surgical anesthesia possible instead of getting somebody drunk and having them bite on a piece of leather. There were many, many, many successful devices. They were patented. They were gaining widespread use, many of them. And then John D. Rockefeller came along with his drive to kill every type of medicine except allopathic pharmaceutical-based medicine because, of course, John D. Rockefeller Jr. owned the means of production of all of the petroleum of the world, and the coal tar, the gunk at the bottom of the cracking towers, was being used through the brilliance of the German organic chemists to produce most of the pharmaceuticals of the day. He owned the means of production, and he therefore purchased the controlling interest in the pharmaceutical houses and then set up the medical schools and the medical boards with his money and the Rockefeller Institute and managed to make the FDA come into existence and so on. All of this to drive out everything except pharmaceutical medicine, which was his one of his revenue streams. And the entire electrical frequency medicine field was demonized and criminalized and driven out of business. and nearly driven out of existence. So the device that your grandmother had probably came from that time of um, electrical and frequency medicine flowering. And my suggestion would be that you might think about having it reproduced so that other people can have the benefits of this device that you know to be fantastic. So that would be very, very interesting to see what it is that your grandmother used and find out how other people could benefit from it, I would think.
Yes, and then you come into all these, as I said, now they don't produce it anymore. But I phoned up the woman it was a Schiller machine, so I phoned up the woman in Germany the man who made it has died, her husband, and she was very old by that time, and she said, uh, um, I mean, he didn't invent it; he just made it. She said, "Well, we can't make them anymore because the EU regulations, but they're having very big ones in German hospitals. Not so in English hospitals, of course, but in German. So I don't think, you have to really now jump through many hoops with patents and stuff like that. Anyway, it's not the stuff is not patent. You couldn't patent it now because it's already existing. But I think it would be very difficult to do so. I believe there must be something like this already in existence. I'm sure there is. But I'm just using that.
Well, the only place that these devices exist, as far as I know, physically exist, is the Bakken Museum in Minneapolis.
Really?
Yes, as far as I know.
Oh my God.
Uh huh.
Well, even if you had one made afresh, they wouldn't let you use it. I mean, you could, you wouldn't be able to use it, as a bit to treat patients.
Unless you were doing something like a membership organization, an expressive association, which Ralph is an expert in,
Hmm.
which is
Well,
fascinating.
it is
Ralph, you
indeed.
want to talk about that for a second?
Yes. I think we want to start with the fact um, that at least in the United States, whether a substance or a device is a drug or a medical device or a nutrient on one hand or what I call non-medical device on the other hand, depends really to a great extent on
Hello?
the. Are you there? Hello. Yes, we're still doing
Hello?
fine.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you. Yeah.
Really? Oh, let me see. Then let me see if I can be closer to the microphone here. How's that?
Better.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we are on live internet radio. It is the Dr. Rima Truth Reports, and this has been a really interesting program. We're in the last 15 minutes of the program right now. The question is about how we distinguish between the natural means of achieving and maintaining health that we all talk about and that this discussion has been about, and the licensed and government controlled practices of medicine and similar things. And as I said, in the United States at least, it's basically a distinction based on intent. And intent is garnered from the expression. It's all about speech. In a country in which Congress is supposed to have no right to control speech, whether you can do what you're doing or not apparently often depends on speech. But, for example, with the medical devices, if it's a biofeedback device, it is not subject to those sort of strict regulations. And very often we find that these type of devices can be positioned as biofeedback type devices. So, it's just a matter of how you express yourself. There are some forbidden words. And I think, given the dominance of the U.S. Nutrient and natural remedies industry in the world, a lot of those distinctions probably carry over to other countries. We've seen that with other countries adopting American dietary supplement restrictions, even though they make no sense. But on the other hand, sometimes there are good things that happen. As Dr. Rima and I recall, there was a time a few years ago when we were able to sit down with people from another major country and go over the regulations they were about to adopt for dietary supplements. And by making a few strategic changes in language, we're back to that again, we were able to basically ensure that there would be a vibrant dietary supplement industry in that country, because it would be possible for people not just to use the nutrients, but to produce the nutrients and sell them as well, because otherwise,
what happened was that the regulator was on our side,
right,
and she had been tasked with formulating the regulations for the country, and the changes that Ralph brilliantly introduced were so minor. They were taking out the word "not," or putting in the word "not," putting in a comma, taking out a comma. They were so
right,
minor that the parliament of the country involved never noticed, and so these were passed as the regulatory law of the country, opening up the possibility of a high potency um, nutrient environment like the United States. That's not what they intended. The
yep,
regulator intended it. She was great, but the oligarchs did not intend it. Ho ho ho.
right,
well, as far as my business is concerned, nobody could actually regulate my earth breathing technique.
right. That's true.
so,
And that's
so
very important.
yeah. Because what I can also demonstrate to people, in fact, when you, for example, when you have, do you know about the goosebump quotient?
Let's
Have
talk
you
about that. No, I don't.
have you heard about that?
No.
Well, is in fact in the book Mega Brain, it is mentioned that I think he's called Professor Liebeskind. I don't know, in the Palo Alto Institute. He actually researched the the goosebump effect, which is something that he wondered why it is um, that people get this kind of, when you hear something that touches you, either music that really moves you, or anything that really moves you, you get this kind of hair standing on the back of your head,
Yes.
neck.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what he called the goosebump quotient. So he actually did research on it, and he injected some people with, was it naloxone?
Yes.
And yeah, and oh God, what is it called now? The word for this particular. Uh, it's a pain reliever, a natural pain, a natural opiate and pain reliever produced in the brain.
I believe it's naproxen in the United States.
Um, but no, sorry, I have now a complete word blindness for the English word. But anyway, this particular, when that is produced, then with the naloxone in the double-blind trials, he could actually prove that this particular what is it called? Is produced in the brain, and this actually promotes healing. It's like a natural opiate. It produces healing, and so he actually equated the goosebump quotient to the amount of that is being produced in the brain. I wish I could remember the word. I'm sorry, but that is very important. That when I actually show to people that when I do the breathing, I can they can see it on my skin.
Uh-huh.
That's
Uh-huh.
interesting. I'm wondering if there's a relationship also, Dr. Rima, with CBD and its the neurotransmitters it fits into, and some of the discussion we've been having with the guest today as we come up to the last 6 minutes of the program.
And our guest, by the way, is an extraordinary healer and an extraordinary researcher. Uh, we are not just talking about imagination. We are talking about fact. We are talking about responses that are very, very powerful and very important. Ingrid Dickenson.
Oh, hold on. I now remember the word.
Please.
Endorphin release.
Endorphin.
That's where the CBDs
Endorphin
come in.
release is the more you release endorphins, the higher the goosebump protein.
Ah.
Now, Dr. Rima, what does CBD have to do with endorphins?
Well, there's another system in addition to the endorphin system.
Got it.
There's the endocannabinoid system. You know, we know about endorphins. We know a little anyway. The internal opiate production, but we also produce the cannabinoids, which are available to us when we consume high potency CBD hemp oil. So what it does, what the hemp oil does, among many other things, is that it upregulates the body's production of the cannabinoids, just as the naproxen upregulates the body's production of endorphins. If it, yeah, so it's a similar regulatory thing. Now, cannabinoids, THC upregulates many things and also does things that aren't necessarily so wonderful. But CBD seems to be good at upregulating endorphins and upregulating immune system function and upregulating dopamine and upregulating the endocannabinoids. So there's a whole lot going on at the same time with the hemp oil.
Can you tell me, can that be sent out abroad? Can you send it out?
Absolutely. If people go to tinyurl.com.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
But I want to say it for the other people who might be listening from other countries. tinyurl.com/C as in Charlie, B as in Bravo, D as in Dave, CBD hemp oil. They will be taken to our store, unless, of course, our store has been taken down.
But if that happens, just go back a few hours later. Go back a few hours later because it has been down and we get it back up. And sometimes the tiny URLs won't work and we get it back up. And remember, anytime we give you a tiny URL, you can usually get to the same page by going to our main page, drrimatruthreports.com.
Exactly. And so what we're talking about is something that I believe our research tells us is legal in the UK. It's illegal in Canada. It's illegal in New Zealand and Australia, but it's legal in the UK. And as far as I know, it's also legal in the rest of the EU. But do check with your local legal advisor. This is not marijuana. This is high CBD, low THC hemp oil. It's very, very important for self-regulation of health. And I would not be surprised, Ingrid, if this, in fact, helps to create some of the changes that your earth-breathing technique also creates. Our guest, Ingrid Dickenson, has been talking to us about utterly fascinating therapeutic and biological impacts and options, health strategies and technological options. You must be a very, very busy woman.
Well, I'm very busy in the moment in trying to stop smart meters. It's very, I do a lot of things, but memory is in the moment very important to me. the Bioelectromagnetic Research Initiative. It's very important. Yeah, it all hangs together, connecting the dots. We need to actually understand that we are beings of frequencies, affected by frequencies, and can heal ourselves with frequencies. I'm very interested in your hemp oil. I definitely will get it because that's another thing that is really important for people to, I think, for people to have access to.
I agree with you, and I think I would love to have the opportunity to experience your earth breathing. When I plan a trip to the UK, I will without doubt make sure that we have time together and that you can help me. General Burt will be with me. I hope Ralph will be with me, and we can all experiences. Are people able to transmit it to their families and friends, or do you have to be the teacher?
No, I would always say that especially I don't know about friends, but to their families. I think when somebody sees that something helps you, especially to children, I think if mothers would teach that to their children, it would be great. My little granddaughter wants to do it with me all the time.
How
All
lovely.
right.
How old is
Very
she?
good.
She's 6.
Six.
And I
Uh,
need to, and ladies, thank you so much. We've come up against the time limits that we have on Revolution Radio, www.freedomslips.com. This has been the Dr. Rima Truth Reports of March 2014. Our guest has been Ingrid P. Dickenson, who is an electromagnetic pollution consultant. And on the screen, when you see the archives, you'll be able to see all of our websites. And we will be back next week. Thank you, Dr. Rima.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you so much, Ingrid.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye, and many blessings.